Hello, this is Dave Stevens, and I'm going to be giving a tutorial about how to bring your non-fungible people, your NFP, into Unity to use in like a third-person game or experience. And so, there's a couple steps that you need to go through ahead of time that we'll walk over. Um, and so there's a couple video links in the description that you'll want to learn about first. So first of all, you need to learn how to take your NFP from DAZ and then use the Unity DAZ to Unity bridge to bring it into Unity. So first of all, you do need to set up a Unity project. Uh, I am using Unity 2020.3 because it has this nice kind of scene that really shows off some of the lighting capabilities of Unity as a default when you create a Unity HDRP uh, like project from the Unity installer. So you'll want to create that scene like a default scene, and this is default other than the NFP in there. And then you're going to want to follow that video that's linked down below for installing, like basically using the DAZ bridge to bring your NFP over. And then once you've done that, you also need to learn how to pull a couple animations. So in order for a third person experience to work, we need, a couple animations on the character. The ones that we're going to be using for this tutorial are pretty basic. Basically, we're just going to have an idle animation that the character uses when it's just sitting around and a walk animation. And that's all that we'll have. For full game, you'll probably want more, but that's a good start. Where we're getting these animations is from Mixamo. So Mixamo are basically freely available animations from Adobe, and there's a link down below that you could follow a video that kind of describes how get installed with Mixamo and download animations for use within Unity. They also have characters, but we only care about the animations for this particular effort. And so, yeah, make sure to go ahead and follow that video. And finally, you're also going to need to get our asset package that we're providing, under the MIT license, and you could get it from GitHub. And we also have a link to download that from inside the description. So once you have all those things, then you could go ahead and get started, and that you've already exported a NFP into the scene, then you could go ahead and get started with this video at this point. Okay, so once you get to this point and have done those setup steps, the next thing that we need to do here is install a package from Unity. So this is under Window Package Manager. And so we can see that there's a list of packages that by default Unity assigns to a new project. I'm going to go to the Unity registry, which shows all the other packages that Unity has as available add-ons. And the one we want is Cinemachine. So Cinemachine is, like it says here, it's a smart camera tool for passionate creators. This is how we get a nice third-person camera. By default, like we would have to write a bunch of code and do other things to make a decent third-person camera, but this kind of does a lot of that for us, and so we're using it. So I'm going to go ahead and click install here, and this will take a moment, so I'll pause the video for a second. All right, so we've installed Cinemachine. You can see that it's it's got a checkbox indicating that it's installed. We could go ahead and close it down. If we looked under packages, you see that Cinemachine's in the project now through the packages. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is install the third-person template that we are providing. Again, you could find it from a link in the video. So we're going to go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and from there we can see that I've got this NFP third-person template.unity package. And I'll go ahead and open that. So you can see that there's like a few items in here, and we'll kind of go over what they mean as we go. But I'll go ahead and import them. So what that's going to do is that's going to import those set of assets into our project, and it's going to show up in a new folder here. So now we've got the NFP third person template folder. Okay, so next what we want to do is actually bring in the animation. So to kind of go over that, I'm going to start by showing this character controller that's included in the NFP third person template. And so this is basically like a way for you to kind of set up the animations for the project. And we're doing a very basic one, but it's one that can be kind of expanded. Probably want to expand it a bit for a full game. So to view it, you're going to go to the Animator window. To find that, you could go under Window, Animation, Animator. So this shows like basically the state machine, the animation state machine. So, and you can see that there's a single state, which is movement. And inside that single state is blend tree. So basically the animations will be playing on the character based off of this state machine, which is not, there's no additional states to this. And there's this blend tree. And what the blend tree does is it mixes between two different animations depending on this parameter, which we're calling speed. So you can see that there's a parameter speed. You don't have to worry about setting it manually because the script that we're going to put into the scene will do it for you based off of the movement speed of the character as it moves. But we do need to hook up these two new animations. So we need to pull in the Mixamo animations that you've downloaded. And so I'm going to go and go to import new asset. And so I've got two animations right here ready to go that I've downloaded from Mixamo. And so there's a idle animation and a walking animation. So I'll go ahead and import both of those. So you can see that there's two different animations. They look a bit different in the project view here. So this one is just this like simple box. The second one actually has a picture. Now that's because they were downloaded in different ways from Mixamo. This one was downloaded with skin. So one of the options that you could choose is whether it's going to have a skin with it or not. If so, then it brings in the model, but we don't need that model. We only need the clip. So there's the actual animation clip. And same with this one. This one was downloaded from Mixamo with just that idle animation. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them out of these assets. So to do that, I'm going to click on it. Well, actually, first thing I'm going to do before I do that is that one of the things about animations is that they're targeted against a specific character rig, a character skeleton. And so in this case, because they came from Mixamo, they're targeted towards a Mixamo character. So if all of these things were being applied to a Mixamo character, then by default it's just going to work. But our NFP is not a Mixamo character. So instead, we want to retarget these, and it's pretty easy to do that. Basically, you change it from like if you look at when you click on this, you see that there's these different tabs. Make sure that it's on the rig tab, and you change the animation type to humanoid. So this is the Unity default humanoid skeleton that they have a pretty nice solution to map like most animations that deal with like a person to the same rig. And so you can actually go and configure it if you want to, but the default options work just fine for what we're doing here. So I need to do that for this one as well. I'm going to make it humanoid as well. Go ahead and apply it. And now we're going to open these up, and we're only going to keep the clips. And because you see that it did add these little avatar components, but again, we don't need those because we're going to be mapping it to our character. So to pull the clips out, I'm going to click on the clip itself. It says animation click, and I'm going to hit Control D, which is going to duplicate it. Because it's inside this, this file, it'll duplicate it into the containing folder. So I also want to do that with this walking animation. Okay, so I've got these two animations. I no longer need these two files, so I'm going to go ahead and delete them. They're just kind of extra things that we don't need anymore. The other thing that we need to do to get these animations prepped is mark them as looping. So because this unarmed idle animation is going to be basically played over and over as the character sits still, we want it looping, and same with this walking animation. They're not like single use animations. So finally, we need to hook them up to our animator. And so we click on the movement. So again, from the, if you lose it, you go click on the controller, then you go to Window, Animation, Animator, and then you could see this. And so as we kind of discussed before, this is the like the simple state machine we're using. And here in this blend tree, then we want to add the idle when you're not moving very fast, and then walking as you move faster. So the threshold of 0.5. So if your speed becomes 0.5 or more, then you're going to be fully using the walking animation as opposed to the idle animation. Okay. So that is it for our animations. Now we're going to go back to the scene here, and we could see that there is this NFP in the scene that because it automatically adds one when you do the DAZ 3D Studio to Unity pipeline. So I'm going to double click on this, and we can see that there is a character here. Let me just change my angle so we can see it. And this is my NFP. You can see that there is kind of a problem here where the eyes aren't coming through. It's a pretty common thing. A lot of these, like we haven't, like the DAZ team is going to need to continue to improve this pipeline of pulling things out, and not everything is coming through correctly. We will be improving that over time, but for now there's this eye problem but that is something that we could correct. And so I'm going to like select the prefab for this character. So you see that like by clicking that, then it took me to this folder, DAZ 3D NFP. I have an extra one here. You could ignore that. You only have the one. And so here is the character. Now, first thing, we talked about the animations. We want the animations retargeted so that this character could use them. This character also is using a different rig because it's coming from DAZ. It's using the Genesis 8 figure skeleton, and so it's rigged basically for Genesis 8. And we don't want to use Genesis 8. We want to use humanoid. So we're like we would set it to humanoid and hit apply. And so you can see that it's getting ready to go. It's basically doing the remapping so that it's set to be a humanoid rig. And so that's done. Now let's fix the eyes. And so we've got a little bit of work around here to fix that. So one thing is like when you open up this, you can see all sorts of materials that are involved with this NFP. The one we're going to mess with is this cornea. If we just try to look at it in here, we can't modify anything because it's part of the FBX file, so it's not modifiable. But what we can do is we could go right click on it and choose extract from prefab. And so now I'm going to put it into this textures folder inside the NFP folder and just select that. And so it's going to take this cornea out of the FBX, like this file, and put it into this textures folder. So you see there's cornea no longer here. If we open up textures, here it is. So we got kind of a workaround. If we go and set this to greater, don't ask me to explain why, but here we go, like it's no longer a problem. We could see the eyes. So, and that's sufficient for what we want to do here. Okay, so like now we have the NFP kind of ready to go. We could actually kind of delete this from the scene because we haven't modified it in the scene, and we're going to add it in later because we have it available anytime that we want to by just, yeah, it's right there. But let's kind of walk over the scene and what is in this default scene that you create with the HDRP. So you can see that it has like this open area. So it's showing like an exterior lighting. And so you can see that it's got all sorts of lights everywhere and probes and other things that are going on that's showing up like all the capabilities. You can see this, that's kind of like a skylight coming down. And you can see that like how it works with reflecting with the glass and everything and all those pieces. And then over here is an interior lighting area where it just kind of shows you if you have interior lighting, what it can look like. So this is just kind of a nice playground to like kind of work within with put your NFPs in. But you could, later on switch it out for other scenes. Um, okay, so now on some of these other things that are going on here. So if it's got like the various different components, one thing it has is this player controller. This is the default that they give you so you can kind of navigate the scene when you hit play. But we don't want this because it's like it doesn't have a character associated with it. It's just like you're just a floating camera. So, and you can see that inside here is the main camera because it's following that. But we don't need this. So we're going to go ahead and delete this. So we don't have any camera in the scene at all, and that's fine. So if we went to game mode, you see that there's no camera. But we're going to add a camera using the kit or the template that we provide here. So under the third person template in the assets path, you could find prefabs. And the first thing that we're going to add is this main camera. So there's the camera. So we put it in there and you notice that it's just kind of going a little crazy because it doesn't have a target. And then we're going to put the NFP character into the scene. So this is the object that's going to be moving around, and we're going to attach the NFP to it. But this is the primary game object. You see that it's got a script attached to it that that will allow you to move your character around and provide some other options there. But there's a couple things that we need to hook up here because we've added these in here. This main camera, if you scroll down, you'll find this look with mouse. It actually needs to know where the character is, so we're going to drag that here. And so now we got the character there. And then in the follow camera, we need to hook it up. So again, this is like a Cinemachine third-person camera. There's a lot of controls to play with, but we're not going to be going through that in detail. There's plenty of other videos that kind of go over how that works. But we just need to hook this follow target to the follow target on the NFP character. So basically that's going to mean that it's going to be following the NFP character from the shoulders. Like you'll have it behind the shoulders of the character. Okay, now we need the NFP itself. And let's pull it out by going to the DAZ3D, NFP. We're going to drag this into the scene onto this object. Okay, so you can see that it's by default, it's off to the side where we can't do anything. This is not a good place to start the character. So we want the character to be above ground and somewhere where it makes sense. So we're going to pull it up and we could kind of move it around here using, this is the Unity Move tool like up here if you don't have it selected. And we want it to kind of like be standing on the ground. So we're going to go, zoom in a little bit just to make sure that it's got a good placement. Okay, so there we go. That's a okay place to start from. Another thing is that when you drag this on, you might notice that it actually has a rotation to it because like that's how it got exported. We want to reset that so that it is exactly following the NFP character. This is the thing that's moving, and we want it, like the character, be facing in the direction that this game object is facing. Okay, so we've got that reset. Now there's a couple other things that we need to do to hook up the animations for this character. You can see that we have an animator component on the character. We want to add our character controller onto the animator. So again, like I press that button and I chose the character controller. Okay, I want to set apply root motion to off. So apply root motion basically means that the animation itself is controlling where the character is going. We don't want that. We want the user to control where the character goes and the animation to be in place. And so that's what we've done there. Okay, so we've got this set up all how we want to be. Now, one last step that we could do here, this will probably make it easier for you down the road. if you ever want to, change your character position or do anything else with it. We've kind of done a couple setup steps on this character. So what we're going to do is we grab this and we're going to drag it into this prefabs folder, and we're going to select original prefab. So now we have the NFP character. Anytime that we want to, place that character back in the scene, we've got a nice prefab setup for it. And so that, yeah. Okay, so uh, there's one other thing that's kind of an optional thing, but so we want to be able to jump. And so the way that the character controller works, so we have this player movement controller works to find out whether you can jump or not is whether you're touching the ground. And so it does this by having this ground check component down here by the feet to check whether you're touching the ground. In order to do that, it needs to actually be set to the ground. So by default, you're not going to have this layer in there. You're going to need to add this ground layer. And to do that, you go into to layer up here, and we're going to say add layer, and then you'll basically pick one of these user layers to use as your ground one. You click on it and then type in ground. So now you've added the user layer, and basically this allows you to kind of check for something pretty quickly. If it's in that layer, then that's something that's easily checked, and that's how it uses that layer in this NFP character controller. So then you need to set the ground mask by selecting your ground layer from this dropdown, this ground mask dropdown. We also need to set up the scenery to be marked as the ground layer. So here's the default platform that you start on. We want this to be considered ground so that when it searches, it'll find it. You click on layer and choose ground, and then you choose yes, change children. So that basically marks this as a ground component. We're going to want to do this for other things. I'm going to just do it right here for ground as well. And that's just this larger part. And there's some things in the other rooms that we need to. So basically anything that's a floor or an aisle. So I'm going to open up the room 3 and do the same thing. These sections too, like anything that is touching the ground, we want to mark as on the ground layer. So we're going to set these. And yes, change children. And so we set it all at once for the rest of these. So now all of those places are marked up appropriately so we could jump. We could tell whether we can jump or not. And as just about every Unity tutorial tells you, make sure to save your scene now before you start playing, because Unity does crash on occasion. You don't want to lose all that work. So you save the scene, and then we're going to go ahead and hit play. Okay, so now it's getting ready to go into it, and there we go. So we have our character. It's in the scene. You can see that it's got kind of a default idle. It's slightly moving its arms around. As we rotate our mouse left and right, we're changing the way we're looking. So it's got, and then use the WASD, like WASD controls, to move around the scene based off of the direction that you're looking. So now we've got a way to move this character around. Now, we also think it's really good to be able to actually see your character and take a look at it. So you could if you use the right click and hold, you get to kind of rotate around your character and see it. And then if you wait a moment, it'll zoom back to that. Now, how that works, just real quick, is in this NFP character, we have a couple parameters down at the bottom. Rotation power is basically how quick you rotate as you move the mouse around. Normalization delay is how long it will take before it actually, if you've changed your view by using right click, it'll take 2 seconds before it starts to rotate back. And as it's rotating back, it's using that 90 value, that normalization speed. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk around. So you can see that I could walk around here and I could hit space to jump, and that's working fine. Now we're gonna go in here and we could just kind of view like the pretty cool environment that they have here, and see the NFP from all these angles as well with her silly expression. And then come on over here into the interior lighting and kind of look again. got the nice linoleum floors and other things. Got some pretty cool lighting effects going on. So here we go, and now we've got a pretty good template to start with. Like this should allow you to start building a game out of with your NFP as the main protagonist. You could start thinking about what to do with it. Like you could do as simple as just adding platforms to jump on. Make it a scene where you could kind of run and jump and hop around and try to get from place to place. Another thing that you could do is start adding enemies and monsters and other things. And then as you'll find a bunch of those kind of things through there's free assets in the Unity Asset Store, but you could buy them too, and so you could start adding enemies and make like where you have an action game of some kind. And so you could go from there. Find me, look me up again. Find me as Livestrum in the NFP Discord if you got any questions or if you'd like to show me things that you've done, because I'm always excited to see those things. What people will do, and that's like I strongly believe as a community, as we help each other do these things, then we're all gonna be better off because we could all do cooler things with our NFPs. Thank you very much for your time and good luck getting this all done.